everyone, and welcome to SEG's live webinar discussion, How to Future-Proof Your Software Platform for Acquisition or Growth. I'm Austin Hammer, a principal here at SEG. I'm so excited for our conversation today, and I want to say a special thanks to our guests for tuning in. The discussion should take about 45 minutes, after which we will answer a few questions from the audience. I'll hand it over to Paul. Take it away.
Thanks, Austin. And hi, everybody. I'm Paul LaChance, Chief Strategist, Technologist, and Evangelist here with SEG, and I'm thrilled to be hosting today's webinar. I'm a two-time software company founder that successfully exited my organizations. My most recent is now a global Siemens platform. I understand the importance of creating strong, flexible, and scalable software platforms with the right people, processes, and technology, but it did not come easily for me. I find it completely ironic that most SaaS founders might shortcut the critical aspects of smart product development, often due to chasing the next sale. I was one of these people. At SEG, we understand the importance of strong tech, both as a driver, better business today, and a long-term value of your organization if and when you want to exit or take an investment. Our goal today is to provide tangible next steps and insights into evaluating your current platform, defining what is great tech and the steps it takes to get there. We will also speak on how this will drive better sales, reduce churn, and help the morale of your organization. I'm honored and grateful to have Jeff Scott, Chief Delivery Officer at KMS, join me today to offer his expertise and perspectives. Jeff brings a wealth of insights to the table, and we're privileged to have him share his wisdom with us. Jeff, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Again, my name is Jeff Scott, CDO for KMS Technology. I've been with KMS for a little over 6 years now, and I lead our delivery, global delivery practice and our consulting practice. And I've had over 30 years in the industry, and I've had opportunity to see and work with many companies of all shapes and sizes, including the type of company that Paul started with and has grown. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly in terms of companies preparing for the future and for future growth and success. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of those lessons learned and what we've seen over the years to help those that are in the audience today.
I think probably one of the most important things we can do today is to define what is a future-proof, scalable, and efficient software platform. It'd be great, Jeff, if you can kind of just talk us and walk us through the critical elements of a future-proof system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish that I could predict the future. I can't. I don't have a crystal ball. But I do have a pretty good idea of what good and great companies, product companies, are doing today in terms of growing and future-proofing their platforms and what they're doing to take steps. And I know that I'm confident that the things we're going to talk about today to improve your platforms, if you take this advice, take these steps, are going to pay off dividends in the end for you. One of the things I think that's important as we define future-proof, we need a North Star or a point to point to in terms of where we should go and what we should look at. And if we look at characteristics of future-proof platforms, things that we have seen, they're scalable and flexible in terms of their architecture, very robust in terms of the security and compliance, addressing needs of today and looking ahead at future risks that are out there in the security landscape. They support continuous innovation and upgradability, meaning that they're keeping up to date with the latest and greatest technology and the versions of the platforms that they're integrating with over time. And really focused on cross-platform compatibility and interoperability and making it easy to integrate and partner with other companies and other technologies as they come to pass.
Let's dive into a couple of these in a little bit more detail. I think the first one, the scalable and flexible architecture. You know, I have my own personal experience, and I also have the pleasure of working with lots of startup to even growing and mature SaaS companies. And we kind of look at, we need to grow we have maybe conservative estimates that we're going to grow our user base by 10, 20, 30%. What happens, and I always suggest to founders, what happens if you're going to go 50%, 100%, maybe even 1,000% in time? Will your application be able to handle that? It's sort of a different mindset to get to that point. You'd agree?
Oh, definitely agree. And we see a lot of the companies we work with will do stress testing on their applications, performance testing, load testing, to test out what is in place today to know where the breaking points are. And it's important to identify those proactively so you're not dealing with them when you get to the point where you do have an opportunity to scale. And if you're at that point and you haven't tested out and don't know, it's too late.
Yeah, for sure. And the continuous innovation and upgradability is another one. As I said in my intro, as founders who are often involved in the technology of SaaS companies, we're always kind of, what is our competition doing? What are the enhancements that we're hearing from our clients, in some cases to win deals? And it's that balance of how do you add those? And I know you're going to get into recommendations later, but it's really important to be thinking about that core stability of your application where upgrades can go well, that you're not introducing unintended consequences, i.e. bugs, yet have those enhancements in there. It's a balanced game there. And I think some of the attributes I know from my own self and from talking and seeing others, you tend to favor the new innovation more than that core capability. And that's something that I think really is important, that you focus on both.
No, absolutely. And not to steal a little bit of thunder of things that are coming down the road, but it also takes a balance of the people in the process to address those things and keep those things in mind as you're advancing the technology as well.
Yeah, for sure. And compatibility too, like defining a future-proof system, you have to be able to communicate well within your own application, possibly to adjacent modules. But even equally important in this industry 4.0 where data is everywhere, other platforms, other applications, that interoperability, that ability to interface, I think is something that is really important as you look at the future as well, just given the state of this industry 4.0 with AI permeating everywhere.
Yeah, we see companies a lot of times they go fast and they'll try to invent things, in terms of data standards and interfaces custom to their application and to their needs, and spending a little bit more time looking at open standards and maybe taking an API first approach will give them that ability to flex down the road without having to make those changes when opportunities do come to interact with other companies or other technologies down the road. Other characteristics, data-driven and AI-enhanced. And this is really talking to the ability to leverage the data that the application creates and leverage data that's out in the industry to help your application perform well and to respond to customer needs. And also to integrate or to leverage some of the new AI technology that's out there, the LLMs, the chatbots, the generative AI capabilities that exist in the industry today.
Let me jump right on that. We can, as we work our way through here, AI is obviously on everybody's top of mind in the software development world. I'm not a big fan personally of the word artificial intelligence as a marketing thing. I'm an incredibly big fan of using AI within your applications, like you said, LLM, generative AI, and many of organizations that I look at and work with, it's often, say, predictive analytics with machine learning. The data is underneath all of that. So, and this is something that I think in previous generations of software development, we didn't think about as much, but to know that you're going to have only more and more data that's underneath everything as we move into this sort of industry 4.0 AI world, it's a critical part of your future proofing.
Oh, absolutely. And data is the key. Data is the life. Data is the blood of any application and any system, any product, any company. And strong data governance is a place to start there, and making sure that you have good ownership of the data, good quality of data, and good hygiene in how you're managing that data through your pipeline, so that when you do eventually get to use it to advance your system, you're doing it with confidence that that data is true and accurate and is going to give you the right result.
Yeah, really good point. And user-centric design and the concept of UI, UX, central. I grew up in an era where the programmers, the developers, the engineers were also the people that were largely responsible for the design, the UI, the user interface. And I think the industry has really smartened up and moved to a model that as much as we value our engineers, we wouldn't have our software without those amazing techniques to really get into that human side of how an application needs to perform is become a really important central theme. And also it's a big differentiator between competitive products, those that really take that to heart. And can you comment on that?
Yeah, in working with large enterprise companies all the way down to the small startup companies, I'm seeing the larger companies have always had a group that's been focused on user-centered design and understanding the personas and the user workflows so that they are building remarkable experiences online for their customers from day one. More and more common in the smaller companies we're working, the small to mid-sized companies, even startups, they're incorporating that and they're bringing specialists in to drive the user-centered design and not relying on the developers to, with all due respect to the developers, hack something together that works. It's about the experience, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression from a user experience standpoint, and it's got to pop when you first get out to market. So having that extra time spent on the user design for that experience, and then thinking about how your user interface can adapt to the client needs over time is really important to spend upfront.
Love it. Can you comment on the sustainability and eco-friendly aspect of a future-proof system?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of movement lately. We hear a lot in the terms of the green movement and eco-friendly type of saving the environment and reducing our carbon footprint. And it's important for us as companies to think about that. It's more and more on the minds of investors, more and more on the minds of consumers, to look at how eco-friendly is the product I'm working with, how eco-friendly is the product I'm looking to buy, how sensitive are they to their spend in terms of the amount of capacity and storage that they're asking for from the cloud providers or their own system. What kind of energy are we taking? What type of energy are we consuming? And how are they approaching even things like driving to work and the impact of hybrid work models versus working from in the office? Those are all things that are important for a company to think about and have a strategy as they look to the future.
Fascinating. We've talked about what is a future-proof platform and those main elements. Let's talk about what are the benefits with strong product tech, people, and processes. Jeff, I'll let you just kind of run through these. I might jump in and throw in some comments as you go through it, but please.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is investing in a future-proof, scalable platform gives you the ability for your system to handle the needs of today and handle the needs of the future, which is, again, a little bit more on the definition of future-proof. But investing in an application can pay off, and investing in future-proofing your application can pay off in many, many ways. Most of them are going to be long-term benefits, to be fair, because they take time to realize. But some of these things can happen in the short term as well. And so let's talk through a few of these as we get into them. Think about the way we're designing our systems. If we're designing our systems for scalability and flexibility and with future needs in mind, we're going to have the ability to avoid accumulating technical debt. Technical debt is costly in terms of down the road where you've got to address it. You may have to rewrite, you may have to revamp, you may have to refactor the application or deal with bugs that are embedded from previous bad behavior or whatever, or bad design. So that is a huge short-term benefit, and at long-term as well. Adaptable platforms allow for the quick integration of new features or new technologies. That gives you the ability to get faster time to market. That gets you out into the market quicker and helps you to remain competitive and above and beat your competitors in terms of new features or new functions.
Let me jump on that one if I could. This faster time to market, it was for preparing for this. I'm reliving my days as in day to day creating the platforms that we created, and there's always that. There's a phrase. Sometimes you have to move slow to go fast. This faster time to market. I can think of personal situations where there was an enhancement that we wanted to get out, we wanted to have a deadline, and maybe because of some of that technical debt, we introduced some unintended consequences with that release. And that first chance to make, and you have one chance to make a first impression, rushing that as much as it's tempting to do because a competitor put something out there. If I could have done some of these things over, I would have just maybe slowed down there and taken care of some of those underlying capabilities. It's a mental thing. And is there advice you can give to people? I know we're going to get into recommendations a little later in this, but like, how do you find that balance?
Yeah, it's getting out to market quickly is important, and being an early adopter or a first adopter or whatever in any new trend or new technology. If you think about generative AI and the buzz that started in generative AI a couple of years ago, everybody has integrated generative AI into their product, into their roadmap, into their website. Everybody's got generative AI capabilities. If you're not there now, you're behind the curve, right? So being fast to market is important, but getting it right is equally important. And taking into consideration all the things we've talked about, especially the cost efficiency and the thinking about future proofing, thinking about ways that you can incorporate things easier into the future using open standards, using flexible integration or flexible capacity in terms of your cloud. All of these things we're going to talk a little bit later enable you to go faster to market when you need to. But it's about doing it safely and not doing it at the detriment of creating more technical debt that's going to make the next integration, the next innovation much more harder.
Yeah, and if you do these things, so this cost efficiency concept, it's a common phrase. You have sort of a development, an aspect of your development organization that's focused on, say, fixing bugs that keep the application running, and then you might have a group that's focused on future. I mean, there's real costs to maintaining bad technology, and you're looking for P&L relief. Investing in that early to have that strong foundation will give you that efficiency. And I know you probably get this in the recommendations, but not only will it'll be easier for your to add these enhancements, they'll go smoother.
Absolutely. So we jump to the UX and retention. User-centered design, reliable and responsible user-centric platforms always have higher customer satisfaction, which leads to retention. And retention is key in this market today. You don't want to lose any customers because that's that much harder to gain. That's much more work that your sales organization's got to do to bring those customers back in and meet up for the reduction and add to meet your growth goals. So focus on retention is extremely important. And then security and compliance. Customers trust us as product companies with their data, with their information, with their privacy, and any breach of trust is very detrimental to the long-term success of any company. Making sure that you're able to handle today's needs and tomorrow's potential threats gives your customers that confidence that their trust in you is worthwhile.
Yeah, it's a whole new world in that standpoint. You don't want to make the papers for the wrong reason on a security related issue. I mean, it's maybe a bit of a dramatic response there. But, there's a lot of nefarious actors out there that are trying to exploit these things. And it's a whole new world from that standpoint. You have to invest some time, energy, and technology to make sure not only today, but in the future, you're ready for those next challenges. And to your point, the security and the privacy of the data too. It's great for your messaging as well, that you really care and you're protecting that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So looking a little more long-term, future-proof platforms can handle scalability and growth very easily, very flexibly, very automatically, even depending on how you're designing your system, how you're using your cloud platforms and your infrastructure. This enables you to handle increased loads, increased users, and data without degrading performance of the system and the users that are using your system at all. Being prepared to integrate latest and greatest technologies helps to maintain very strong market position. Market position is key. We talked about faster time to market, but also just maintaining market and being able to advance is important as well. But integrating latest and greatest tech also opens up more opportunities for strategic partnerships if you're able to integrate more quickly, more rapidly. And these could drive additional revenue sources for you down the road that you're not thinking about today. So again, investing in open standards, investing in the ability to integrate very quickly gives you better strategic competitive advantage with the technologies you have, but also long-term things you didn't even realize you could be doing, that it makes those possible. One of the things that I found, and with several companies we work with that have maybe not paid attention to technical debt or not paid attention to some of these things that have caused them problems down the road, the impact of a team having to work on resolving bugs, resolving tech debt, and not being able to advance new technology or new features has a tremendously negative impact on the morale of the company. So a system that's resilient, a system that is prepared to address and handle challenges that come up, and they're going to happen. You're going to have loads, you're going to have problems in the infrastructure, but the quicker, the more rapidly that the systems can address those things, you keep the morale up, you keep the employees happy, and you've got a good thing going. And ultimately, it's all about maximizing the value of the company for an exit value. Higher valuations are much more likely to happen for future-proof platforms that anyone that's looking to potentially to invest can see that you're prepared to handle long-term growth. You're prepared to handle the scale. You're prepared to handle the new features and new acquisitions or new additions with very little investment on their part to make those things happen.
And really, it all ties to better business today, better possible M&A activity later, scalability and growth, as we said. What if you had to scale 20 times? That makes you a more attractive organization. Competitive advantage, you're winning more deals, better sales velocity, easier integration and partnerships. Again, revenue opportunities and a more flexible system. We're going to have slides later that show this really does translate better business today, lower churn, better sales, better growth, better profitability, but can also really translate to a better exit. I'll take this slide right here, and it's just hitting on very similar things. I won't go through each and every one of these. It's a synthesis of sort of a direct translation from what Jeff was just explaining. There's real data that shows if you improve your user experience as well as your user interface, you will reduce your churn. Your gross retention will go up. You're losing less customers. And there's real data to show it'll be pretty significant. And that'll really be highlighted later in terms of the improvement of both your current company's profitability as well as what it'll be valued at in the future. Customer satisfaction improves with reliability and performance. Anybody who's in the SaaS world has had those phone calls with that irate big customer because of a bad bug that left them hanging. It hurts. You want to try to avoid that. Strong tech would do it. If you can have that continuous mindset improvement, you will, and you can add enhancements that come out the gate strong and effective, you will improve your net promoter scores. Scalability will keep your customers who grow with you happier and grow. So you can go through each and every one of these. There's direct translations by making that investment in that strong people, tech, and processes that will pay off. So we talked about a lot. Now we want to kind of move into what are your recommendations? As you said before, you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great, I should add in there as well, because there are absolutely great small software companies that really leverage later. So let's go to the next slide and we can kind of run through some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Paul. So as we work with companies that are looking to grow or looking to future-proof their platform, I like to advise them in these three core strategies. Scalability, looking at scalability, looking at efficiency, and looking at adaptability. And these are primarily from a technology standpoint, but let's dig into each one of these and try to help you understand why these are the strategies that are important. From a scalability standpoint, it's helpful for organizations to look at things from the way the application is designed, whether it's using a modular design or a monolithic. I've seen companies that are monolithic that really fail under the weight of the big monolith, because it's hard to move that big rock in the rapid way that they need to meet customer needs. But looking at modular design approaches like microservices or modular monoliths, or just service-oriented architecture, anything that breaks things up into smaller chunks, gives you the ability to scale the number of people that are working on things concurrently, but also to scale different aspects of the system without impacting the entire system all at the same time. An API-centric approach is good from a design standpoint as well, both for public and private interfaces. It gives you the ability to isolate and to integrate very quickly with very standard interfaces that it's easy to understand if you're going outside of your organization, and even internally working within your own teams. And then a combination of the way your application is designed, and if you're designing it in a way that is intended to be built and deployed in a cloud-hosted environment, you can leverage the ability to scale both horizontally and vertically, which gives you great ability to scale in many ways, depending on what your needs are, customer needs and growth needs are. If we look at efficiency, there's different ways to optimize the performance of the resources you have in place. And a couple of things we talk about is really looking at cloud native and even serverless architecture for certain aspects of the system that allows for automatic scaling and growth based on user demands, rather than setting something at a certain level and letting it run without always using and utilizing the resources you have. It helps you from a cost standpoint, but also more efficient utilization of the resources that you have. Efficiency also translates into or relates to performance of your teams and the performance and the tools they use. So automated testing is a key factor, and implementing continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines with automated testing attached to it as well gives you a build process that is predictable, that is essential for rapid deployment, rapid iterations of your product. And it helps you to reduce the number of bugs that you're introducing into the system, because they're tested automatically every time you go out to production. And then if we look at adaptability, this is designing things in a way that is easier to integrate, easier to grow, easier to bring new technology in. I mentioned it a couple times already, looking at open standards for data formats and for your communication protocols. It ensures that you have the ease of interoperability between other systems and the ease of integrations of all those future technologies that are coming, because they're all going to start, they're all going to be focused on those open standards, because a new technology comes out there, they want to make it easy for the user base to use. So the more comfortable that your teams are in interfacing in that way, the better. Also, again, from a design standpoint, we like to recommend dividing out your front end and your back end services. This gets a little bit into the scalability from a monolith to a microservices, but in general, making sure that your front end and back end are decoupled. It gives you the ability to evolve the front end or the back end independently or at the same time, but to test them independently and to scale and adapt them independently without impacting each other. And it gives you the ability to bring in new front end technologies without having to change the back end services and vice versa.
When I hear, this is all great. And when I hear these things, one of the most important messages for me as a former founder, and one of the most important messages we can deliver in this webinar today is software development is so much more than what is on the screen that your users see. And that you have to make sure you are properly allotting for progress in all of these areas. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Again, this is probably the third time I've said it in this webinar. You need to add an enhancement because a competitor has it, or you have a big customer asking for it. And I've been in enough of those product roadmap type calls with my teams in the past so that, that dominates the conversation, as opposed to we really need to spend more time automating our testing, which arguably is more important than adding that enhancement if you suffer from some of those other challenges, which we discovered earlier. And maybe you get into this in your future slides a little bit, but like that mental gymnastics of getting your team on that message, I can see it's going to be a challenging conversation with your director of sales, as opposed to your chief technology officer who wants to take the time. So can you talk a little bit about that, sort of that balance again?
Yeah, there's a dynamic there between the product, the pressure of the product features, and the pressure of dealing with technical debt and architectural things that are preparing for the future. And the worst place that I've seen, or it's very uncomfortable as an engineering team leader going into a situation and saying to the product person, I can't do this, or I can't add these features because this stuff you asked me to do this. I told you 6 months ago I needed to do this so that I could do what you want me to do. Now I can't. But the pressure is going to continue to come because they're going to say, well, you got to get it out there anyway, which ultimately means more technical debt because you're going to have to work around the stuff that wasn't working before to get that new feature out the door. So having those conversations early and having that partnership with a product lead, chief of sales, the product leader, the product manager, about healthy balance of technical debt reduction and new feature development in each sprint and each iteration is a way, especially for an existing product, if you're trying to introduce this in the beginning, there's got to be a balance of that through time. And then you prioritize new features along with technical debt, and both groups should be involved at the same time and support that work at the same time.
And for those people on the webinar listening, you're thinking, well, I'm never going to get my enhancements. You will. You do this work. You set up for all the other benefits we've talked about, faster to market. When you take care of that technical house in order, everything else will be easier from that point moving forward. Correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Point on.
Next slide, please.
So a lot of what we've been talking about has been technical. One of the things in implementing these strategies that is really important, I think, to note is it's not all about the technology. World-class software product companies have a great balance of focus on technology as well as people and process. And we've heard this in school, we've heard this through training and other webinars and things too, but I see it in all the companies I work with. The best of the best, the greatest ones have a balance across all three. They have tremendous people that are focused on innovation, focused on collaboration, focused on continuous learning. They've got processes that are data-driven, that are agile, that are iterative and enable the team to go faster rather than weighting the team down in unnecessary steps that don't add value to the product itself. This balance is extremely important as you take your journey to future-proof your product.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything behind what's on that screen that people use every day. You think about everything that's behind there, and I'm a big believer in it's the people that you want to work with and be with, and having good processes. I totally agree.
I mentioned earlier that I've seen a lot of companies, the good, the bad, the ugly. And as we work with companies that are in a position where they're looking to future-proof, they're looking to make changes and prepare for higher value down the road and to improve their valuation or improve their profitability or improve other aspects. At KMS, we take a very systematic and methodical approach to addressing those kind of concerns. And we're looking to help them understand what steps they can take. What's the first thing they need to focus on? And with a balanced look across people, process, and technology, we start with their product management organization, just like we talked about earlier, Paul. How are you managing your backlog? How are you managing new feature versus technical debt? What's the balance there? Go right around the circle and looking at architecture and infrastructure. How's your system built Is it scalable? Is it reliable? Is it performant? Development, testing, and DevOps. What are your practices and processes and tools that your folks use to get good software out the door and to build those new features for your clients? Security. Deep dive into the level of security that you take. How serious are you about security within your application? Encrypting your data, keeping passwords out of your code. Those types of red flags that you don't want to see in a system or an application. And then following up with or finalizing this with the customer success and really listening to how well do they listen to the customers? How well do they understand the customers and what their needs are? And how quickly are they able to evolve to the changing customer needs? Because that feeds into product management and becomes a self-sustaining cycle. So this is the work that we do with the clients we have. And I feel like it's a good strategy for anyone to take when they're trying to figure out what's that first step? What do I take when I'm looking to say I need to future-proof my product?
Yeah, one of the things that this really reminds me of is a good product is awfully generic to say. I mean, you look at what your SaaS software company's day looks like. It's everything from straight software development coding to DevOps to implementing new clients to interfacing with other applications, maybe bringing in data. It's so many different components. And each and every one of these components can really be at a different state. You may have great product management, but you're not on the best tech stack. Or you may have a great product, but it takes you 3 times too long to get a new customer implemented, which really will hurt you in other areas. And this is a great holistic view. And I think this is one of the good things about how KMS, the way you can separate these things and look at the holistic look at everything. You may not have to fix everything. You may only have to fix a few things. And that's what the good news is, but you can focus in and make those incremental improvements while adding that innovation at the same time. I think this is a really important message.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The strategies we talked about before and the recommendations, they don't apply. A lot of companies are doing most of those things or some of those things. So when we talk with companies, it's all about what are your needs to get your product in the place that you want it to be. And it may be just a few things to tweak, or it may be a major overhaul. But it's good to have that knowledge of what is needed so that they can map out a plan.
Yeah, love it. We're in the sort of the last major section here, and that is positioning your software for favorable mergers and acquisitions. So if you want to go to the next slide, M&A, I mean, you may have no desire to exit or take an investment with your organization at some point. You still need to do all the things that Jeff has been talking about because it means better business today. Lower churn, better sales, better profitability by finding cost savings here and there. But if you do want to take an investment, be it from a private equity firm or a strategic investor, there are things you can do today that will position you more favorably. And I'll just kind of go through some. As you're preparing, and some of these things need to be done, in some cases, maybe years in advance, in some cases, months. It's not things you can do right when you're about to think about a process. This stuff takes time, as Jeff said earlier. Ensuring clear documentation on everything. Your quality control, quality assurance testing, your source code, of course, open source use. You want to make sure you are set for continuity as you grow. What if you lost a key member of your team? But think about if you are going to go through a process someday, all of this is going to be heavily analyzed. So this is good today, good for a possible event. Strengthening any intellectual property, your IP and patent strategies, if you have patents or the ability to get that. That takes time. We want to think about that earlier. But we take a lot of our customers through successful processes where they find new homes or take big investments. So we see what the buyers and the investors are looking for, demonstrating market potential and competitive advantage. I think that kind of goes without saying, but this is greatly aided. Competitive advantage is relative to your competition. If you look better, you operate faster, you're more stable, you have more enhancements that are coming out, and you have a market that you can grow with. I mean, that is a very good place to be. Showcasing a robust and secure technology stack, that also is very important. Now, we have numerous customers, clients of ours that we brought to successful exits, even with older technology. It really will depend. If you're in a more narrow focused industry, you own the market, you have really good quality code, and you have great enhancements, you can still get those deals done for sure. But typically speaking, you want to make sure that you take in readily available, smart technology stack, both because it's going to make your application better, but it's going to be easier to find people. Highlighting consistent revenue growth and customer retention metrics. So more sales, better demos, better pilots, better capabilities in the software, better releases, faster application, you will grow more, you will churn less. And that is all aided by this technology. And then finally, some things you really want to avoid, identifying and mitigating common issues. I knew when I met with my development teams, we knew where our challenges were. You can't sort of ignore that. You have to identify them, and you have to make sure you're actively working on that tech debt earlier with that healthy balance. And it's important to be transparent and honest during any due diligence. If and when you go through a process, and what we do at SEG is our clients will very often get an assessment of their platform from KMS, where they come in and identify, here's this application, here's how it's structured, here are the areas that might be of some concern, but equally important are, here are the great things they've done, that they've set themselves up for future growth. We know as a bootstrap software company, you don't have enough developers to do everything you want. But if you build that foundation and you get that fuel, you set yourself up for that growth, whether it be today or in a future event. And the investors love that. Let me just pause here for a second and see, Jeff, is there anything in there you wanted to kind of throw in?
No, I think you covered it very well. A lot of these common issues that we do see, this might be a question that folks may answer or may ask later, but security holes or security gaps in the code is a very, very common issue. Open source license issues, another very, very common issue that comes up, that are easy to remediate, but sometimes if you're not paying attention, they'll sneak up on you. And those are some things that are good to find sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it's rare that it gets this far, but sometimes in these assessments in the diligence phase, some of these flaws can actually tank a deal and certainly create a haircut on what your offer will be, because the investor is going to have to go in and remedy those. Get it taken care of before, when you have the time to do it safely. I'm going to highlight why this is really important, and it can translate to big dollars in terms of what you might get. There are, we survey buyers all the time at SEG, and there are several aspects that they routinely tell us that are important to them when they're evaluating a potential investment. Strong retention, gross retention, little churn is incredibly important. A profitable leaning rule of 40, which means your profitability and your growth. You're beyond zero, you're profitable and you're growing. And then what are your growth rates? All of these, as discussed previously in the webinar, will lead to a better valuation. We go to the next slide. I'm going to really punctuate this. So take a company that has, this is a pre-churn improvement, upper left-hand corner, company A. They're churning 15%. Their gross retention is 85%. In today's M&A market, that is not an acceptable, with some exceptions, it is not an acceptable gross retention rate. You need to improve that churn. Well, day to day, this company is doing okay because they're upselling, they're adding new business to the neighborhood of 30%. So they're still growing at 15%, but they are a leaky boat. And that is not something an investor, a strategic buyer, private equity organization wants to see. And it also is hard on your organization for your day-to-day operations. Fix the churn. And there's a lot of ways to fix churn. Jeff outlined a bunch of them that will help you improve your churn. If you can cut that in half and get the upsells and get the new business, you're at 23% growth with a much more stable environment. If you train your eyes to the upper right-hand corner, the bottom, the dark blue line, over time, this company with the pre-churn, where they're churning, they're growing, But in the 5 years they're growing, they're only incrementally adding on a certain amount. If you fix the churn, this example right here, they added by year 5 an additional 7.5 million in ARR on top of their existing revenue. Investors love that. I can tell you, any leader on this call who looks at their P&L and their sales, they love that as well. And it really punctuates, if you train your eye to that bottom right-hand corner. If you are, because of the wonderful compounding of ARR, if you're the pre-churn example, you're going to get a lower multiple if you can get an offer at all. So in this example here, there's typically there's a lot of ways these deals get done, but sometimes it's a multiple on your ARR. Your multiple on your ARR, that bottom one for this, and this sort of arbitrary example here, is 80 million. If you fix the churn, because of that compounding impact of your ARR, because of the favorable environment that the investors look at by a much better gross retention, 95% instead of the example there, you literally can double the value of your organization. Those are significant dollars. And I really believe that getting your tech house in order is a huge help here. I'm going to go to the last section here, if we can move, for our key takeaways so we have time for Q&A. And the first one I'll go with is, don't bury your head in the sand. I've been in those meetings where we know we have challenges, people, processes, or technology, yet we continue to say maybe focus on enhancements or other areas and just kind of kick that can down the road. You got to take that mentality. You've got to work with your team to make sure that everybody is on the same page for that balance of innovation, but getting your tech house in order. And incremental changes can still work. You just got to invest in these improvements. And again, to Jeff's point earlier, it's not just necessarily your source code. There's a lot of other areas where you can do that. This stuff takes time. And the closer you get to wanting to think about a process, because you can be growing and you're getting all kinds of inbound inquiries from possible investors, and you're thinking the time is right, you don't want to start fixing your tech house in order at that time. Let me pass it to Jeff for this last couple of bullets here.
I'm going to switch the order of mine just to emphasize the point that you made. Future proofing is worth the investment, both for short and long term. That last slide is very, very powerful in terms of valuation of your company, and just working on churn alone. Think about if you did 4 or 5 other things to help with security, help with scalability, and all these other aspects, it could be even higher. So that's a huge point to make. The last point is, if you don't know where to start, that's where we're here to help. Paul with SEG and me with KMS. That this is what we do, and we'd love to help anyone that's in a position to looking for help, understanding where to start, how to future-proof, how do I help increase the value of my company. Let us know what we can do for you. We'd love to have a conversation.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And we personally seen KMS come in, both the companies that are not ready to go through a process, but get some of that turbocharge to move those things in the right order, or in many ways. And same thing with Software Equity Group. We really know that market analysis side it can reinforce, and we're here to answer your questions. So from a Q&A standpoint, let me start with a question, Jeff. How can we balance the needs for innovation with the inherent risks in adopting new technologies, especially when future-proofing with our platform? So it's kind of the same thing we were just talking about. Maybe you can kind of go over that a little bit more. How do you find that balance?
Yeah, so everybody wants to go fast. Everybody wants to use the latest and greatest shiny new things, but typically shiny new things are inherently risky because they're unproven or unknown. So what I like to do, what I've seen in my past experience and what I recommend for our clients is take baby steps, pilot, test something, test it on a small scale before you roll it out to the enterprise. Don't go full in on something until you know what the inherent value is for your company and what the impact it will have on people, process, and technology, because you could roll something out inadvertently and really negatively impact productivity and performance of your system by having something shiny and flashy in there that works for a little while, but it doesn't work for the long term. but we do controlled pilots and really making sure that you've got a strong governance group working with those things that you want to innovate on. So you've got balanced decision from your CEO to your CPO to your CTO. They understand the risks, they understand, and they can approve and validate and test out. Is this working? Is it valuable? Is it worth taking a further step? And then you've got the entire company bought into that innovation. That's how I balance the innovation with risk.
It's such an interesting thing because it is really a combination of good management, good personal skills, interacting with all the stakeholders, obviously a firm commitment to strong engineering underneath all of that. You know, we just think about it as it's a software development thing, but it's so much more. All right, we got time for one or two more here. What is the best practice? I love this one. What is the best practice for managing and reducing technical debt?
That's a great question. Best practice, one is identifying it. You can't reduce it if you don't know what it is or where it is. So you got to know, you got to have insight into it. So you got to track it. And some teams track them as you know, on their Jira boards or their Jira stories, they'll track them as stories of here's an area of technical debt. That way you've got it in the roadmap to plan. And then you have that conversation with your product lead, product owner, product manager, and your technology leader to have an agreement of what percent of time are we going to allocate in each sprint, in each iteration or each increment toward technical debt reduction versus product development. And there may be different times in the life cycle of the product or life cycle of your customer base where it makes sense to have more focus on technical debt versus product development. If you're working a system that is, for instance, school-based or education-based, well, the summertime is probably building out new features because you're going to roll out something out in August, September timeframe for the new school year. Well, as soon as you get the new folks in there, you're going to want to do a tech debt maybe spike or iteration or write an epic that's mostly about technical debt so you can prepare for the next round of features. So it's going to differ and vary based on the different type of product you have, but it's about the balance of conversations and kind of negotiating with the product owner on how to prioritize.
Well said. I think that's all the time we have for questions. If you did put a question, I think we can move to the next slide, please. If you did put in a question and we didn't get it, we'll get back with you. So I'll go ahead and kind of bring us home here. As we come to the end of our discussion, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to our guest speaker, Jeff Scott. Your expertise, insights, and wealth of knowledge have been truly invaluable. I'd also like to extend our gratitude to the attendees. We sincerely value your engagement and participation throughout the discussion today. We hope you've gained some insights and takeaways to help you prepare for better business today and a potential exit. As always, feel free to reach out with any questions. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Austin for closing comments.
Thanks, Paul. And I want to say thanks again, a special thanks to Jeff for joining and driving a really robust conversation with Paul. It was great insights and we really appreciate it. For those of you still on, a survey will appear as you leave the webinar where you'll have the opportunity to submit any additional questions. Feel free to take a few minutes to fill it out and we'll do our best to send the response as quickly as possible. We'll also be emailing a recording of today's discussion, so please be on the lookout for it. Thank you again, everybody, for joining, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.